culture pastor.
Cody El Muerto, who is the a Spider-Man villain.
That's made up.
I know you would think that because he's only ever appeared in 2 comic books, 2 issues
Okay.
of a comic book. But El Muerto is a Spider-Man villain. And Sony's doing some things. And we need to talk about it. But first, we should introduce everybody and say hello and welcome to Pop Culture Pastor, the podcast.
Hey, we made it.
We did. Cody's here. I'm here. We went to Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City this past weekend. I hope a lot of you got to meet us or see us.
If you were there, if you weren't, shame.
We made a lot of new friends.
We did.
There was a lot of people that we met and people were hoping to have on the pod.
So many.
Yeah, we met new geeks for the round table.
Exciting times.
Yeah, and I'm talking to at least a couple.
As one does.
Yeah, we find, the geeks all have their own special strengths, just like the Knights of the Round Table. They all have their gifts, and so we met a couple guys at Planet Comic Con, including one cat who just knows all the information, trivia stuff about movies,
Stuff that I knew, stuff I didn't know, and stuff I didn't think I needed to know.
He's like a cinema wizard, and hopefully we'll be able to have him on here real soon. But we met a lot of people. We met a lot of people who were just curious about what we do. Pop Culture Pastor is an interesting name.
It is.
And for some of that crowd, it seems like for some of our crowd, the Christian crowd, it seems like what do you call it when you have 2 words that don't go together?
An oxymoron.
Yeah, that's it. An oxymoron. I don't like you calling me that language. But, yeah, it's almost like an oxymoron to people, but we had a great time.
It's ironic, don't you think?
All right, calm down, Alanis. But we had a great time. A lot of people at the Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City.
So many.
Yeah. And
it was almost overwhelming.
It was kind of overwhelming. We were exhausted and we were tired, but man, it was just a great weekend. We got to talk to a lot of people, which is why we're there. We're there to just hang out with you guys.
We even met King Arthur.
Oh yeah, and the other Monty Python and the Holy Grailers.
Yes.
Yeah, we got a picture with them. You got a picture with the Zach Morris.
Mark Paul, as I like to call him.
Your friend Mark Paul Gosselaar.
Yeah.
I got a picture with professional wrestler Booker T.
And you know what? There's a song called Booker T.
Is there?
And it's by one Bad Bunny. You think I'm making it up, but it's really a true
We're
story.
going full circle. We're saving the drama for your mama. That's something else that Booker T like to say.
Yes.
Yeah, well, let's just get right into the news. Should we? We kind of let off. We kind of teased it a little bit. Sony announced this week that they're going to continue their Spider-Verse, as it were.
Bold move.
It is pretty bold considering Morbius is apparently hot garbage. Called it.
I thought that I would go watch it, but then the reviews were so bad, it was on par with Cats, and I made a moral stance against Cats, and I'm like, I can't break it for Jared Leto. So
scared you off, didn't it?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if we go back into the pod archive, there was someone who was pretty optimistic about Morbius, and then there was another guy.
I was not optimistic. I said 1 out of every 5 Jared Leto movies is not half bad.
It's the Jared Leto rule.
It is. And since he was in that movie with Denzel Washington, within the past year, that was probably the one good movie. So,
yeah, by all accounts, Morbius is very, very bad. And Sony, coming off that, is making
more bad choices.
It's making a Craven movie, which is so mind-boggling to me. I mean, the reason Venom works And I would say that that's not a slam dunk. Not everyone likes those Venom movies.
No. I would say if you were a fan of Venom in the comic books, you typically are a fan of it. And if you're a fan of Tom Hardy, that's kind of your target audience.
I guess, but I was a fan of Venom, but only as he relates to Spider-Man. He's a character in the Spider-Man comic books. And so to have Venom without Spider-Man was just weird to me. They go with like he's kind of a hero, which, you know, it takes years before he's kind of an anti-hero in the comics. For the longest time, he's pretty much a bloodthirsty villain.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So I'm just, you know, I'm not all that interested in the Venom movies, but they did okay. Then they have Morbius. It's trash. Now they're going to do a Kraven movie, which again, it's to me seems pretty attached to Spider-Man.
Have they announced who's playing Kraven?
Yeah, it's Quicksilver from the Marvel movies. It's same dude, Aaron whatever Johnson.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Questionable decisions.
Left and right. Like, if they had Timothy Chalamet playing him, that could have been...
What?
I'm just saying, like that.
Timothy Chalamet weighs like $130.
Well,
he can't be Kraven.
I'm saying that would have drawn me in because he's a phenomenal actor. But now you got someone that I'm like, he was okay, and then you got a random storyline without Spider-Man. I'm not intrigued at all.
That sounds like the Lex Luthor school of casting right there.
Yeah.
Zach, make that choice for you. Timothy Chalamet is Kraven.
I'm saying that you have to get a big name that is not associated with Marvel. If they got Denzel, again, it doesn't have to be comic book actor because Sony doesn't care about that.
Yeah, okay. That's a good point.
What they care about is big names, such as Bad Bunny.
So they're making a Kraven movie. That sounds questionable to me. And now this news, where Bad Bunny... who is a rapper?
Yes.
He's a rapper.
He's also in a commercial with Snoop Dogg.
Okay, he's going to star in an El Muerto movie, which is a wrestling villain who originally fought Spider-Man in a charity wrestling match in which he nearly unmasked the web slinger before being stung by Spider-Man with a paralyzing poison.
That's a rude Spider-Man.
He's literally only been in 2 comics. 2. And they're going to make a movie out of this.
Bad Bunny, I think, has been in like 2 WWE matches. So, hey, it works.
Yeah. The execs are high on footage that Bad Bunny already kind of tested with. I just don't know if I believe that. I don't like test. What do you mean? Like, I guess what I'm saying is like, okay, Aaron Taylor Johnson is not Denzel.
No, he's not.
He's not someone like super known for being super engaging, can carry a movie. Bad Bunny's a rapper.
He, like I said, he wrestled.
Okay, but my point is the story better be on point. And these are thin characters. Kraven's thin enough on his own without Spider-Man. Like, I don't even know what kind of story you're going to tell. If he's not out of relation to Spider-Man, the stories kind of dry up. So I don't even know what story you tell with Kraven. With a dude who appeared in 2 comic book issues, I mean, he's barely related. I mean, you might as well just make a movie about some random wrestler.
And they're doing it.
And I guess they are.
Maybe with Kraven, they go, instead of Spidey, they go after Venom.
Yeah. I mean, if that's what their goal is to just tie everything in with Venom, like it's their Iron Man, boy, that's pretty weak. That's pretty weak. I don't know if it's going to work, but that's where they are. And Sony is just hapless, in my opinion. They're just hapless. And I feel like they're going to mess up into the Spider-Verse stuff too. So the best thing they've probably done was Into the Spider-Verse. Wouldn't you agree?
It was probably my favorite Spider-Man movie until this most recent one.
Yeah. And then now they're going to do 2 movies back to back, like a sequel and another one. And they've already said, I read something today that said there's already like 270 different alternate versions of Spider-Man in the movie. And
I'm
I'm just
here for
like,
it.
oh, you're here for that?
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
You think you are. But when it comes out, you're going to be like, this is a mess.
I don't know. We'll have to see.
I have okay, let's put it like this. I have less confidence in Sony's Spider-Verse than in whatever DC decides to do with anything. That's how low I am on Sony right now. Like, I have more confidence that the Flash debacle is somehow going to work out okay, even though DC and Warner Brothers appear to be just going like, what problem? Let's just keep moving ahead.
They're double downing on this and are like, we'll leak some footage at our Comic-Con event that we just did.
They're sitting on 15 and they're like, hit me. Double down. Are you sure? All right. Okay. More news this week. Out of nowhere again, Chris Pratt was just like
Christopher,
as we like to call him. Yeah, was trending on Twitter again. Because the trailer, like, this is boggles my mind. So the trailer for Thor: Love and Thunder comes out, right? And there's a bit in the trailer where Chris Pratt's character Star-Lord is doing a voiceover, and he's like, when you feel lost, just look into the eyes of the ones you love. And then the camera, the image switches to Thor looking in Star-Lord's eyes, and Star-Lord trying to like move his head away. And Thor keeps moving his head to try and be in front of him, and finally goes, "Not me, dude." And then Thor, like, "Oh, I was just listening, right?" And it's played off as a joke.
It is.
And Twitter goes nuts on Chris Pratt. Why? Because Chris Pratt at some point apparently went to Hillsong Church. Now here's the awesome part. Years ago, Hillsong Church put out a statement saying, "Hey, look, we think Chris Pratt's a good dude, but he's never been to our church or been a member."
Bazinga.
Yeah. So people got mad, but the narrative's already written because Twitter, right?
Yes.
Which, also made news this week because of Elon Musk. And this is the kind of sort of stuff he's talking about, I think, that Elon Musk and people are kind of alarmed at. Everyone talks about Facebook. You got Mark Zuckerberg in front of congressional committees. No one says a word about Twitter. But people on Twitter believe in all sorts of false things. And one of them reared its head this week, the same week Elon Musk took over, bought Twitter. And one of them is this: Chris Pratt is a homophobe because he goes to a homophobic church. The problem is he's never been to that church, and he doesn't ever speak up to defend himself because he's a classy dude.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think, knowing who he's worked with in the past on TV shows, in previous movies, I don't think that he would keep getting acting jobs if he was this major homophobe.
Yeah. He answered some question in an interview that James Gunn. So James Gunn starts defending him on Twitter. James Gunn, huge following on Twitter.
And I happen to know, because I followed Jimmy Gunn as well, that he is more on the progressive side of life.
Oh, for sure. Well, he starts defending Chris Pratt because Twitter was piling on. And he tweeted that, they were trying to cancel him, trying to cancel Pratt, or they wanted him fired, replace him as Star-Lord. And James Gunn tweeted, "For what? Because of your made up, utterly false beliefs about him?" And I think this is what we need more of. We need more people with all of the clout, because James Gunn has a ton of followers that gives him clout. We need these people to speak up and to end these weird false narratives that happen on Twitter. Although I don't even know if he can, because there were still people in the responses to that tweet were like, "Well, whatever. We believe it. He's a homophobe."
I mean, if you really are a big James Gunn fan and you watch Suicide Squad and you've watched a lot of his recent works, he has taken on a more proactive role in casting LGBT actors and casting LGBT characters, within his movies and TV shows. And so I think that, again, it's a thought that he would know, having worked with Chris Pratt for the past handful of years, if the dude's being honest or not.
Yeah. He went on to tweet, did James Gunn, I know the church he currently goes to. Do you? The answer is you don't, but you heard from someone who heard from someone who heard from someone where he goes to church. Then you decided, yeah, okay, I'll believe this terrible thing I heard online about this celebrity. So
/ don't go to Hillsong Church, evidently.
Well, by the way, he goes to Zoe Church.
Oh, yeah. Zoe Music.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with their stuff.
Which is not related to Hillsong in any way.
No.
Not that it matters. Here's the thing. It's not the church piling on that concerns me. And we're both pastors, so you would think we're coming from that angle. No, I'm just concerned about the level of disinformation on all social media that people just gobble up and trust and believe, when really, by and large, my whole thing during the Facebook debacle was it's not just Facebook. It's everywhere. It's not even just social media. Information in general on the internet is by and large so corrupted. And we just take everything. If it looks a certain way to us, we all have a threshold. And if that threshold is met, then we just take it as truth. If it's on the internet.
Yeah. And we have our trusted sites and we have our trusted news outlets. And yet, like, throughout the past couple of years, all major news agencies have had to redact and issue apologies for stories that they ran that weren't necessarily true, that they didn't further investigate after seeing, wait for it, online. And so, I mean, yes. And it also points to a larger problem with society, and that is that we're a bunch of gossips.
We do love the gossips. We're gossipers, yeah. I think here. I never thought I'd say this, and it makes me sound old. I understand I'm about to sound really old, but I don't even know what to believe anymore. That's how bad it is. Like, when I read things on Twitter, on Facebook, anywhere on the internet, I just don't trust it, and that makes me feel like I don't know what's going on. I don't even know, like the Ukraine, what can you trust about what you read about what's going on there? Because there's Russian propaganda. And if you didn't know, there's Ukrainian propaganda too.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess for me, it's whatever I find value in. Mm-hmm. In which, I mean, I really enjoy pop culture and I really enjoy media and news and sports and all that stuff and being caught up on current events, but it's not that high on my priority list. And so I don't get bogged down too much in the details. I basically take kind of like snapshots of, well, this is what this said, but I'm not going to be all in on it because it really doesn't bear that much to my life.
Yeah. Let's move on. Let's move on to some better news.
Okay.
Let's talk about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
So the longer this goes, I think I feel bad for everyone.
Oh man, is this just a mess?
It's because, like, there's so many biblical principles that this is at times going against, and I'm like, I wouldn't do this. But again, that's me operating from a pastor standpoint where I don't know either their faith lives. And so you do you, but like, I don't think anyone comes out this squeaky clean. No one comes out a real winner.
Well, certainly Johnny Depp's bed didn't come out of it squeaky clean. He recounted in testimony back in April 2016 that he and Heard had an argument during her birthday party, that he wanted out of the marriage, and he later went to retrieve his belongings at their shared residence while Amber was at Coachella. But he said that his security guard sent him a picture of a problem. And he said the text said, she's at Coachella. I think it's a good time to go downtown so I can get some of my things and get them out of there. That's what he texted to the security guard. And he said, I don't think now's a good time to go. And he sent him a photograph of their bed. And on his side of the bed was what he said was human fecal matter.
I'm all for poop humor, though.
I've tried to watch some video of this trial, and there's nothing here I can grab onto to relate to. Like, he's super odd. He's a super odd cat. She's obviously super, super odd, super out there. And they're both like, it's funny because if you watch it, you can detect that they're both trying to act what they think is like normal.
Yeah.
And it just comes off as more weird. They're like body snatchers. They're like aliens wearing human skin. It's all kind of wild to me.
So for me, it would be, as I'm watching it or watching the news stories come out about it, I just see brokenness and trauma and mental health issues. There's some self-medicating on the part of one Jonathan Depp. He had a huge wine bill. Like, I don't even know how in the world, like, how many bottles that is. It was gigantic.
Well, they shared a text during the trial where he was texting his friend Paul Bettany, who plays the Vision in the MCU. That he said that he had been drinking, and it's not good when he drinks.
No.
So, and he admitted that. But, there was also plenty of testimony to back him up to say that he's not a violent person, including two ex partners of his, Winona Ryder and his last wife, who both said that he never was ever even approached violence.
Yeah. But there's an underlying problem or issue that he's trying to work through, whether it's from that marriage or if it's from something in his past. Or he just has a family that is prone to addiction. But there's so much to this story that, we are gossips. And so I feel bad every time I'm looking at news on this story, because it's like, I don't need to know this. I don't need to know these intimate levels of your life. And I really feel that it shouldn't be played out in the court of public opinion, but it is being played out in the court of public opinion. And
well, let's talk about that for a second. Is this weird? Look,
so weird.
I didn't decide to watch part of this because I sought it out. It was just there in front of me. It's everywhere. It's on YouTube. It's on all these things. Why are we paying so much attention to this? There's literally a war going on in the Ukraine. Syria's a mess. Like, the pandemic's, it's calmed down, but it's not over.
No, because there's like 2 new variants.
So what is happening? Do we just need a distraction? Is the media just trying to be like, oh, here's something that's not world shattering. Let's talk about this. What do you think the processes of this is? Why do we care?
I would think that part of it is that escapism factor, that this isn't too tragic. Like, this isn't world calamity level, which we've had a lot of. But at the same time, there's the cult of personality here, where both of these individuals, before they got divorced, were eccentric to begin with.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
And that I also think that because of how eccentric they are, how many details had already been leaked out before the trial began, this trial, that I think that news media outlets see this as sensationalism, and sensationalism sells.
Yeah. Here's a question, and then we'll move on. How many women out there are thinking, I'd still marry Johnny Depp, even with this look into him, like how weird he is.
I will say there's been a lot of women on like my news feed and timelines on social media that have been like very pro Johnny Depp, which if you would have said this 2 years ago or longer, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, especially in light of the Me Too movement, he would have been immediately crucified.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of amazed at where like the societal reaction is.
Yeah.
Now.
I only ask about women because I know dudes would still date Amber Heard. Dudes are stupid.
Yes.
If the girl's attractive, they don't care. They don't care. They would I Married an Axe Murderer by Mike Myers. That might as well be a documentary.
I'm pretty sure that there are documentaries with similar titles.
Okay. That's the news we got this week. We're going to head out to the lobby to answer some listener questions. Meet us out there in just a couple seconds.
Welcome to the lobby.
Okay, welcome. We are in the lobby, ready to answer listener questions. Maybe get some snacks, as one does in the lobby. Are you ready, Cody?
I am.
Just got a few questions today. Scott Patrick Dillon, who's one of our favorite askers, also a sometime contributor to the show. He asked us, what are our favorite fast food places? Scott, this is a complex and loaded question. I mean, the easy answer is Taco Bell. I think that's the easy answer.
No, you have missed the most obvious.
The most obvious?
The most obvious.
What's the most obvious?
God bless this restaurant single-handedly.
Oh, man.
The Lord's Chicken itself, Chick-fil-A. I've never had a bad Chick-fil-A experience, but I have had bad Taco Bell experiences.
If I say that Chick-fil-A is good but a little overrated, do I go straight to hell, or how does that work biblically?
You might be in a place where people will be praying for your soul.
There was gnashing of teeth and weeping. Chick-fil-A's good. I mean,
so as far as chicken places, it's at the top for me.
Sometimes when people go on and on about Chick-fil-A, I'll be like, have you ever been to Popeyes though?
Yes. And the 3 times I've been, it's been nasty each time.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not here for Popeyes.
Okay.
I'm not.
Bad Popeyes experience.
Yeah. And
Chick-fil-A would be more consistent for
when
sure.
you have had 3 straight bad experiences, it's no longer like, are they good or bad? You just assume they're bad.
Why did Popeye go into business in the chicken business? Did he do it just to spite his friend Wimpy?
I assume.
Who loves burgers?
I will say Sonic is also a good one for me.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not going to say if the one in the town we reside in is the best or not. But like when Sonic's on point, oh, it's so good.
Yeah, if you're just talking, just general product, I could see Sonic. Let's talk about Taco Bell for a second, because Taco Bell would be my favorite standard fast food joint, right? But Taco Bell from like 15 years ago. It's not current. I have an idea I have this wonderful idea that I put out there on social media. I've tried to get Taco Bell's attention with, because I think this is a can't miss money-making venture. I want to open a Taco Bell retro. And basically, I've already designed the logo. The inside will be like an old Taco Bell, but neon it up. Really bring out like the hot pink and the, all the 80s colors, right? That we loved back in the 80s, because we were desensitized for, I don't know why, but it'd be Taco Bell retro, and our menu would only consist of items that the current Taco Bell no longer serves that used to be on their menu. So, the enchilado, which was good. It was smothered enchilada thing that shouldn't have worked, fast food, but it just did. Let's just be real. It did. Extreme nachos. They had red chips on either side on this container of a cheesy bean dip. That also doesn't sound appetizing, was amazing. And it was like $1.50 or something. It was super cheap. Taco Bell used to have a taco burger called the Bell Beefer. A lot of people have forgotten about that. I haven't. Obviously, there's the easy ones like the Mexican pizza, which I hear they're bringing back. The tostada, just a plain old tostada, which I used to love, not on their menu. Double decker taco, not on their menu. But they took potatoes away for a while. Here's the thing, and we would work with the mainstream Taco Bell restaurants. So when nacho fries left, because they're seasonal, we would serve them at Taco Bell Retro until they brought them back for the regular restaurants. It would be a tourist attraction. Tell me it wouldn't. Tell me people wouldn't get off the highway for the one and only Taco Bell Retro and have all the Taco Bell items they used to love.
I don't know.
It's like Field of Dreams. People will come, Ray. They'll come to Southeast Kansas. They'll get off the highway and not know why. They'll pull up and they'll ask for a tostada and a grilled chicken Caesar burrito. Yes, people will come, Ray.
Yeah. So
are you doubting this? The look on your face
Yeah.
is like you look a little ambivalent. And frankly, it's bothering me and I want to punch you right now.
I'm just thinking in my head that if it's been away long enough, it's gone. People have forgotten it.
No, not true Taco Bell fans. Like if you've forgotten the Chilito, then you're soulless. The Chilito, man. So I've heard that some Taco Bells selectively around the U.S. will still offer the chili cheese burrito, but they used to be called the Chilito, and it was amazing. They would bring it back every winter, and it was like, so normally a staple is bean burritos at Taco Bell, which I love, but in the winter I would get the Chilito, which had chili in it, and it was so stinking good. I would slap you for one right now. Just like Will Smith.
Whataburger. That's another fast food place that I'm all about. So
Whataburger is good, but it's not Taco Bell. Taco Bell was the ultimate for me. Taco Bell hits me in this like sweet spot in my life. In high school, we had open lunch and I didn't have a lot of money because I was a teenager. And like you could go to Taco Bell, get like 2 burritos. Bean burritos were like 59 cents. You get 2 burritos and a drink for under $2. You can't beat that. And if you went inside and ordered a water and then put pop in it, it was even cheaper because they didn't see it.
that is what we call stealing, kids. So don't do it.
Well, I wasn't always a Christian, especially in high school.
This has been a public service announcement from Pop Culture Pastor.
Yeah, don't do that. I was not a good person, but the Taco Bell was tasty.
Okay, so
there's that category. I just love of just your random fast food joints. If we're talking kind of more obscure, like for our part of the world, then Whataburger is definitely good. I like Whataburger.
it's
But we
what
don't have
amazing.
any. We don't. But we don't have any here.
Well, that's why you traverse.
I need to know. I need a ruling. Is Five Guys and Chipotle, are these fast food?
No,
You would not qualify them as fast food.
no, I qualify them as chain restaurants at that point.
What? No, because
Yeah.
Chipotle is clearly not like Applebee's,
But it is.
but it's not. Applebee's takes like 45 minutes sometimes to get your food.
Chipotle is not McDonald's. It's a chain restaurant.
I don't know. Some of the McDonald's I've been in the last few years of my life, they take just about as long.
Again, it's a chain sit-down restaurant.
All right, I will respect the ruling. I had a little. I wanted to debate a little, but I will respect the ruling. If I'm talking about like just fast food places in my heart that aren't chains, there's a little place in Topeka, Kansas on 6th Street. It's called Taco Owl's, but it used to be called Taco Casa when I was a kid. But it's the same place. It's owned by the same people. they microwave all their food. So like they make the food and then pop it in a microwave. It's that kind of fast food. And dude, don't shake your head. Don't you dare say an unkind word about Taco Casa. It reminds me of being a kid. I love it. I love it. And every time I go through Topeka, I have to stop there and get some and take it home. It's tasty. I did last time on my way back from, I went and visited my dad here a couple weekends ago, and we brought back some Taco Casa. Had to stop, and it was yummy. Any other places?
No.
No? Mm-mm. You're not a big fast food guy. We recently ate at a Schlotzky's.
I am a fast food guy. But I mean, like, if we're just going to list off our favorite, I mean, the rest, Wendy's is good. I do love Hardee's hot ham and cheese. But I mean, like, fast food's fast food.
Okay.
I have levels, but we don't need to go through all that because we got more questions.
All right. What is an opinion? This question comes from Josh Kane. What is an opinion you have about a movie that goes against the norm? For example, no one will ever convince me that Terminator 2 is better than Terminator 1. Well, Josh, you're wrong about that. Terminator 2 is better than Terminator 1. But I won't try to convince you since you've already stated no one will convince you. Cody, do you have an opinion like that?
Oh, so I've been outspoken against a lot of movies and a lot of actors, especially if you're the same person in every movie you're in. Like, oh, I'm Mark Wahlberg in this movie.
Don't you dare say an unkind word about Mark Wahlberg. Are you going to go off on Wahlberg?
Yes.
All Marky Mark is out here doing is serving the public making Christian movies now.
Is being Mark Wahlberg in whatever the movie is.
And he's the best Mark Wahlberg out there. Nobody plays Mark Wahlberg like Mark Wahlberg. And don't you forget it, Buster.
So, yeah, like I do have those opinions, especially towards things that I think should not be a huge deal and are looking at you, Star Wars sequels.
Oh, man.
And then looking at you for some reason right now, Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah. Well, the Star Wars sequels are weird because there's pockets of people that like those. But one or the other, and you won't be. It's not. Yeah. You're not super against the grain either way.
Although I will say the Rian Johnson movie was the best album, and that's against the grain.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. They love to hate on Rian Johnson. I would agree with that take, by the way. Here's the one that immediately jumps into my mind is that of the 3 Indiana Jones movies, and I know you're thinking, no, there were 4, Dave, and I'm going to say, shut up, there's only 3, because we do not count Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. That doesn't exist. It never happened.
We might say, please be quiet. Depends on the day.
I'm feeling saucy today. I'm sorry. Of the Indiana Jones trilogy, I believe that Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is the best Indiana Jones movie.
You're going against the flow on that one.
Yeah.
Because usually it's the first or the third. And I lean third just because you have Sean Connery.
Yeah, let me tell you why I believe that. The first and the third movie are more fun. They're funny in parts. But in particular, the first one and somewhat with the third one, the actions of said hero Indiana Jones have little to no effect on the outcome of the movie. Like, it's just a fun kind of airy adventure that he gets to go on, and nothing really is changed by his involvement in the whole ordeal. Other than that the Holy Grail is lost forever at the end of the whole Last Crusade. And that's his fault.
Yeah.
Because he tried to take it out of the place. Well, Elsa did.
/ he might have been able to reach it if Dad had told him it's not worth it.
That part always makes me tear up a little bit. Indiana, let it go. He called him by his nickname he liked to use.
Yeah.
Instead of Junior.
Indy was the dog.
Let's be really clear. All three of those movies are amazing. They're great movies. But Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is such a different sequel. Like imagine so let's just take the Star Wars sequels. They're not dangerous in any way. They play it over safe. They don't make any courageous decisions in the plot.
Anytime they do, they immediately recorrect it. Like,
yeah,
we're going to kill Chewbacca. Psych.
Chewie dies in 5 minutes. You don't even get it for 5 minutes before they're like, whatever. We wouldn't really kill off Chewie. Toys to sell, Cha-ching. Like,
yeah,
as if. And then, they don't make any courageous decisions. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is a wildly different movie than Raiders of the Lost Ark. And it's genuinely frightening in some parts. It's dealing with subject matter that's like child slavery is a big thing in that movie. It's genuinely scary, and it still has the charm of an Indiana Jones movie, but with this much darker backdrop. Ki-Hai Kwan, everybody, like most people remember him for this movie. Some people remember him as Data in Goonies.
I immediately go to that one first, but I remember him as Short Round.
I'm going to say Short Round. Ki-Hai Kwan as Short Round in this movie is the best child acting performance of all time, in my opinion.
Take that, Haley Joel Osment.
Haley Joel, get out of here. That's what I'm saying. Anyways, that one, Josh, that would be the one that pops to mind immediately is I believe Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is a superior movie cinematically than the other two.
Gone in 60 Seconds is a better car racing, stealing movie than the Fast and Furious franchise combined.
Agreed. Also, my secondary one would be The Tree of Life, directed by Terrence Malick, won the Palme d'Or. That's
You're making up.
That's the Cannes Film Festival where all the fancy films go.
Yes,
got standing ovations from people. People loved it. 85% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's awful. Super pretentious. And let's just, by the way, Terrence Malick, pretty much everything he's done is pretentious and awful.
What else has he done?
I don't know. He's done stuff. He has also directed. You're going to make me look it up.
Because I did not know this guy existed until you went on a rampage against him. So
you didn't know he existed?
Yeah.
All right. He directed The New World. That was the Christopher Columbus one with Gerard Depardieu.
Oh.
I think. He directed The Thin Red Line.
Okay, so I have seen New World. It was pretentious.
The Knight of Cups. I mean, these even all sound pretentious.
I don't even know what that's about.
I just imagine this guy goes around and be like, hello, I'm Terrence Malick. I'm awesome. I don't know, whatever. I don't know Terrence. He could be a nice dude.
Probably is.
But listen, I still think about watching The Tree of Life the one time I did it, and I think about people standing up at the end of it and applauding, and I think all of those people should be put in a mental institution immediately. It's the most boring, pretentious movie I've ever seen.
Well, that was a little harsh.
It's not, though. It's terrible.
Well, you can say the movie's boring and pretentious. You don't need to throw the people that were polite and stood up and clapped under the bus.
I get kind of severe about my pop culturedom and loves. I don't know. I think sometimes we see pretentious things, and then because fancy people like it, we got to pretend we like it. Oh, I saw The Tree of Life. It was a wonderful metaphor on being boring. I mean, actually, Dave, it's a movie about the sanctity of life and the parts of it. Now, blah, 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 blah. It's just brutal. Just brutal.
Okay, so that's us against the grain.
Don't see Tree of Life. Save that 2 hours and, go do a good deed for somebody.
Go to Taco Al's.
That's a worthwhile endeavor. David Allen, he asks, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
37.
37? That's your exact answer?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's the implication that a woodchuck can't chuck wood? I'd never thought of this before, but if it's called a woodchuck, couldn't it chuck wood?
I guess it would depend on the size of lumber it's chucking.
And how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? I mean, does this woodchuck in particular have like self-identity issues? Like, I'm not a woodchuck, but I am a woodchuck, and I don't know if I want a woodchuck because I'm not good at it, so my self-image is bad, and I'm not confident about chucking wood. What's going on here with this woodchuck?
So many questions, so few answers.
Josh Kane also adds another question. What's a movie scene that you see differently the most? I think Han killed himself in order to prevent Kylo from fully turning to the dark side. He clearly gave himself up in that scene, right?
Yeah, because it's almost like he like pulls himself into the lightsaber.
Yeah.
I personally just took it as Harrison Ford's like, get me out of this as soon as possible.
Let's be honest. Harrison Ford looked all kinds of uninterested to be there.
Oh, yeah.
He's not exactly bringing the Han charm of old.
Yeah.
When he was thankful for a job, now he's like 80-year-old jillionaire Harrison Ford with his earring. And he's like, Star Wars.
Kill me already.
The bane of my existence. All these kids come up and bother me. I don't know. Harrison Ford seems lovely.
Evidently goes to Wichita all the time.
Yeah. I don't really understand that. I live 2 hours away and I try to avoid Wichita at all costs. I just don't like cities, though.
Yeah.
I'm a small town guy. You got any other scenes that you see different than most?
I mean, I'm trying to think, because that's a good question.
It is a good question.
And like immediately my mind goes to Titanic, but most people think that she could have scooted over and Jack could have got up on it.
But that's not the right question.
Yeah.
The question is would Jack have risked her and the stability of that very small piece of wood? I don't think Jack's character would have.
I do.
What?
Yes. He got on board illegally on the Titanic.
He loved her and he didn't want to risk the stability of the raft. He wanted to make sure she goes on. You have to go on, Rose.
No.
She has to live so she can be like 89 years ago.
And also, I think the necklace just actually slipped out of her hand.
I didn't know we were going Titanic here.
But no, I know that I have movies that I probably view differently than others. There's some scenes in Donnie Darko that are up for interpretation. Mm-hmm. And like the overall meaning of it, like, is it just that the world's better without Jake Gyllenhaal in it? Because that's one interpretation you can have at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Well, Donnie Darko, not Jake Gyllenhaal. But yes.
I think we're going to have to put a continuation on this, Josh.
Because that's a deeper question that I wasn't prepared to answer. Yeah. I should do my homework beforehand.
I know there's been scenes that I interpreted it differently than a lot of people. But I'm having trouble recalling them right now. And I wouldn't until I saw it again. And then I was like, oh, I really think this is happening in that scene. Mm-hmm. But the filmmaker disagrees.
Inception, is the top spinning the correct way or reverse?
Does anybody care? Inception. That's a movie I don't ever need to see again.
It and the Tree of Life, evidently, Dave's not here for it.
Yeah, I'd rather watch Inception 1,000 times before seeing the Tree of Life again, though. I'll tell you that right now. What a waste of time. we're not wasting time. We're going to get back to our main subject. We're talking Moon Knight coming up. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We are ready to talk about Moon Knight, the Disney Plus series that is now, as you're hearing this podcast, we are 5 episodes in to a 6-episode series. You should know we are going to talk spoilers all the way up through episode 5. So,
Spoiler.
yeah, so if you have not watched all the way through episode 5, turn off the podcast right now. Press pause, go catch up, and listen to this podcast later because we're ready to talk about this. We want to get ready for the finale, and to do that, we need to talk about everything that's happened so far. And this show is unlike, in many ways, unlike any of the other Disney Plus shows, but in some ways, it's carrying on kind of a tradition that the Disney Plus shows have kind of had.
I was going to say, for sure, it's in the same realm as WandaVision.
Yeah. The Disney Plus shows, the Marvel ones especially, you know, the movies only get a couple hours. They have to tell a singular story in each movie that runs the course of the movie. They don't get a lot of time for character development. And it seems like what Kevin Feige and company have done have decided that these Disney Plus shows are going to tell some sort of human aspect to the story, whatever that may be. I think the one that's the least there, I mean, if you don't count What If is kind of a fun, you know, cartoony kind of thing. Hawkeye is probably the least heavy, but every other series has these kind of deep, kind of human themes of something. WandaVision dealt a lot with grief.
A ton.
And Moon Knight, as we're finding out, is going to dealing with trauma. And this kind of came to a head in episode 5. Let's go through the whole series where we're at though thus far. Just short, couple minutes long. We're introduced at the very beginning to Steven.
Steve, as I like to call him.
And Steven, what's Steven's last name? Do we know?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Stephen Grant.
Yeah.
Stephen Grant.
Because, yeah.
We're introduced to Stephen Grant, who's a Brit. He works in a museum that has Egyptian paraphernalia.
He knows all about the Egyptian gods.
Yeah. He's very smart, very good background in Egyptian mythology. That's clear from the beginning. And he's having episodes. That's clear from the first episode, the first show. But he's having these mental episodes where he can't remember how he got somewhere, wherever. It becomes clear that Steven has dissociative identity disorder.
Early on, you're led to believe he might have a sleeping disorder.
Yeah.
Because he has a chain to his bed that his foot can't get out, so then he can't walk off and wander. So you think, maybe he's a sleepwalker, maybe he has some other sleeping disorder. But the further on into the episode, you learn, there's other things happening. So
yeah, and so it quickly becomes clear that Steven's other persona is a different cat altogether. and very good at what he does. He slowly starts learning that this other guy named Mark is a part of him, and Mark's life starts to invade Steven's life.
How dare you, Mark?
Yeah. And over a couple episodes, we learn that he's, by the end of episode 1, that he is the Moon Knight. He summons this suit that is given to him by an Egyptian god named Khonshu.
He's Fist Khonshu.
Yeah, the Fist of Khonshu, the Justice of Khonshu, whatever. Blah,
He's
blah, blah.
an avatar.
Yes. And through the course of the series, you learn that all the Egyptian gods work still on Earth through avatars, but not all of them. But we'll get to that. Through a series of adventures, Mark and Steven become more and more aware of each other. It's clear that something's building in their DID, right? Like they're becoming more aware of what's going on. They're getting closer and they're interacting through mirrors. The series has been very clever about that, about how they interact.
Yeah, and you kind of have to be to get a better picture, I guess. Although people with dissociative identity disorder may not resemble Mark and Steven's relationship to that degree. I mean, each person is going to present symptoms in their own way, but there's some standard things that you should see.
Yeah. It's been a good series up to episode 5, and I've been intrigued. And as we've gone through the story, we're introduced to an Arthur Harrow. The first shots of the first episode, he's clearly not a great guy. He's trying to summon Amit, who has been imprisoned. So these Egyptian gods, and I don't know if we're going to get an explanation for this, but a lot of them have been imprisoned in these Ushagis or something like that. I don't know the exact word.
I am not an Egyptologist, so I cannot help you.
In these little statue things.
Yeah.
And through the course of the story, Khonshu himself is trapped in this. And so this episode that we go into, or last week's episode we went into, that Mark and Steven are on their own without the power of the Moon Knight.
Not a good feeling.
Because Khonshu has been trapped in, being held for his crimes against, I don't know, the sky?
Well, he has interfered multiple times in big ways with humanity, and the other gods don't want that to happen.
Yeah. And anyways, at the end of episode 4, Steven / Mark gets shot without his powers.
Yeah.
The powers of the Moon Knight, and it's clear Mark's in a bad way. But then the last 10 minutes of that episode are a trip because he's in a mental institution.
All white.
Harrow is the doctor, and he's being drugged. He tries to escape, finds Steven in a sarcophagus. Just trippy things. You're made to question if any of this is real.
Yeah, because there's always like little hints and fragments from what you had seen the previous 3.5 episodes. But they're just incorporated into the mental health hospital or institution. So
yeah, there's still some people who are saying they don't know. You don't know what's real, but I think we're meant to know at the end of episode 4 when they run into the giant hippo that talks to them by the name of Taweret, who is an Egyptian goddess. That is not real, right? I mean, I think it's all real, but that's ethereal. Like it's happening in his brain, maybe.
Okay, I like ethereal.
Yeah.
That's a good word.
So
I'll go with it.
I think the reason there's so many connections to what's going on out in reality in the mental hospital is because it's going on in Steven / Mark's mind. Mm-hmm. The broken mind of Mark Spector. And such, we join episode 5 directly after the moment they run into this hippo goddess. And it's all the continuation of this kind of trippy thing that's happening. And maybe it's happening, maybe it's not. I mean, I think it kind of is. Whether he's tapping into some sort of magic in the show, we don't know. But I think you're meant to understand that something is happening here. But it keeps going back and forth. The show keeps trying to maybe keep us off balance by sending us back and forth between a Mark and Steven who are on this boat, which is an Egyptian mythological thing where they're heading for the afterlife. And the duat is what they're going over, and like the scales that is weighing their heart. So essentially, Egyptian mythology, their belief in the afterlife centered around this idea that you were judged, like many religions do, and that if you were judged to have been a quote unquote good person, you went to something called the field of reeds.
Sounded delightful.
Yeah. And if you were found to be not great, you were cast off this boat into the sands and frozen by these lost souls, and grabbed and pulled down in the sand and frozen for all time in the sand.
Sounds miserable.
Yeah. And so what we get is this idea, their scales are just going back and forth, and Taweret is kind of guiding them. And what we get this episode is a look finally into what exactly has happened to Mark Spector. And Cody, I was not prepared for this. I ugly cried my way through most of this episode.
So, I mean, besides being a pastor, I am a children's case manager for a mental health center, and also going to school to become a licensed therapist. And so as soon as they announced Moon Knight and that Oscar Isaacs had talked about, we tried to do DID justice and the portrayal of it. Well, DID is something that is triggered by adverse childhood experiences or traumas when you are growing up, when you're a child. And so, and to have that sort of break, it would have to be something very traumatic. So I think I was already mentally preparing myself for it, that you have to have something big in your life to go this route. Or you have to have a lot of things happen like back to back, in which in this story we find out that it's ongoing for him.
I think the clues had been there all along, that he had experienced something terrible. I guess I was just surprised that they went there. Like, the Moon Knight is not even in this episode. He's not really hardly in the last episode. This has just been a different kind of show. And many times while I was watching it today, I just couldn't believe I was watching a Marvel show, because I felt like what I was watching was fantastic. Just great television. Just engrossing and emotionally just grabs you. And the empathy and the emotion I was feeling watching, reliving Mark's memories with him. And Mark's kind of fighting it. It's Steven who is the impetus, who's trying to get to the bottom of everything that's happening. Mark's actually trying to keep him from certain memories as the story goes on. And man, you find out, and they go there. They take you there, and you get to see Mark's trauma and his mother's trauma. And this became, in this episode, a show about trauma, about what it does. We just didn't know we were watching it.
Yeah, and it's not just for Mark, but for the whole family. And the character I probably felt the worst for throughout the whole episode was the dad.
Right? Yeah. You feel like in just the small moments he has, the trauma that he's feeling kind of comes through. The birthday parties. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. When I tell you I ugly cried through it, I ugly cried through most of those scenes. I wanted to have someone else on because I just wanted another voice. And Jason Geesaman, who's been on the show before, he works with foster kids. And so he's not like a psychologist or anything, but he has a lot of experience dealing with trauma. So,
and foster kids, I mean, it is a big deal when they are removed from the home for whatever reason. And the foster care system has some traumas that can be further reinforced. And So I think having Jason on will be definitely very insightful for kind of that mindset, that the trauma brain, if you will.
Yeah. Let's go to the Geek Phone and let's talk to Jason. To the Geek Phone. All right, we've got Jason on the Geek Phone, the Nerd Phone. Should we call it the Nerd Phone or the Geek Phone?
I like the Geek Phone.
Jason likes the Geek Phone.
I'm good with Geek Phone.
All right,
There's worse.
Am I the first Geek Phone guest?
You are the first person we called on the Geek Phone.
Geek Phone a friend.
Yeah, so this is a pop culture pastor first. We have Jason Geesaman geek phoning in. Jason is a chaplain for the Assemblies of God, and he works with foster kids. And in his work, he deals a lot with people who've experienced trauma, obviously. We've been talking about Moon Knight, and episode 5 was, oh my goodness, it was just all about trauma, the trauma that Mark Spector lived through as a child. It's sort of an origin episode, and we get the reasoning why he's having so many problems. And so Jason has some experience here. We just thought we would have Jason on to talk about what you saw in Moon Knight episode 5.
Yeah, well, it's, as you said, a very intense episode. And if you haven't watched it, I just want you to be aware that if you have some trauma in your background, it can possibly be very triggering to watch this unfold on the screen. But I just want to kind of start out that I am not a psychologist, a therapist, scientist of any type, but I have been a pastor in the past, and I do work with foster care, including foster kids and foster families. And a big thing with that, obviously, is the trauma that these kids and these families, quite frankly, go through. And so one of the things I want to just make sure we all have the basis of is that we all in this life deal with some sort of trauma in our lives, whether it be someone passing away or an event we went through. As a kid, a big trauma in my life was when my parents got separated. That's a big moment of trauma for someone. So things like abuse and neglect, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional, verbal, even spiritual abuse are different forms of trauma, and we all go through them at one point or another. The key part is how do we learn how to grow and how to heal from trauma? Most studies would say that the best way to heal from trauma is to face it head on. The problem with that is that our brains don't always work that way. And so as we're growing and dealing with these things, we go through brain development where our neurons start firing as they learn, as it takes us in different senses, as we do what they call the attachment cycle, where baby cries, caretaker comes, takes care of the need, comforts baby, baby calms, and then baby realizes they have another need and cries again, right? And so this happens thousands and thousands of times throughout our childhood. And each time this happens, our brain learns a new pathway, develops a new pathway for this super highway, right? And the thing that happens, though, is if the baby has a need and cries and it's not the caretaker does not come and take care of it, or comes and takes care of it in an unhealthy way, it still builds the highway, but it does not build it correctly. And so instead of having this super highway of these roads interchanging and traffic flowing smoothly, you have basically a bunch of bridges to nowhere. And that's what causes a lot of mental disorders, a lot of behavior issues as you're working with kids and families in trauma. Another thing I want to talk about with trauma is that everybody goes through it, and it affects the development of our brain. It affects the way we act. Um, but just because you've been through trauma doesn't mean you will come up with something like DID or bipolar or anything like that. But it is it's very possible, because our brain isn't trying to be broken. It's trying to find ways to make those paths go to where it thinks they're supposed to go. And so a lot of times what you see with those who've been through trauma is that it's not them lashing out or acting out. It's them, number one, trying to find a way to be safe and trying to find a way to protect themselves. And we see this in Moon Knight, right?
Yeah.
What happens when mom comes to the room? That's when the DID shows itself, that for as far as we know, for the first time. And Stephen is a way to protect Mark from the fear that he is facing. And so when this attachment cycle that we talked about earlier doesn't work the right way, it doesn't build up the processes in the brain, we have this thing where all of our senses are taking in all of these things, and as we're smells and sounds and touch and everything. And if it's not built up correctly through healthy caretaking, healthy attachment, it really can mess with our brain. And what happens is, as the senses come in, they get stuck in the emotional part of the brain. And instead of moving up into our reasoning, our logical part of the brain, another thing that I really loved was when Dr. Harrow, as we'll call him, is talking about sense and nonsense. When we are thinking through emotion, there is no sense. And if the environment around us is setting off our emotional alarms, and these senses are not getting into the upper part of the brain, well, then we are living in nonsense, right?
Yeah.
We can't make sense. And so a lot of times when you have these kids specifically, and you're trying to work with them, and they just they blow up and they just lose it, and you try to talk sense to them, well, they cannot receive any amount of sense or logic or reasoning or rationality. We were working with a kid who we were working at a camp with him, and he was doing so great all week. We're really proud of him because we just had some struggles with him before. And then he lost it one night and just started swearing up a storm at everybody who would come near him. He was about 8 years old, right? And he was swearing, and we finally were able to get him to calm down. And I tried to talk to him about what had happened. I said, it's okay to be angry. It's not okay is how you were talking to people. And he's like, what do you mean how I was talking to people? I said, you were swearing at everybody. He goes, I would never use those words. Never. And in his mind, he never would. He could not correlate what had happened to who he was. But because he was reacting in a moment of needing to be safe and to protect himself, and having all of these alarms going off in his emotions and not getting to his reasoning, he could not remember what actually happened. So there's just a lot of really cool stuff in here, and I just kind of went off. And but another one of the important things I think it's really important to know about trauma is trauma begets trauma. No parent wakes up thinking, I want to abuse or neglect my child today.
Right.
But through how you were treated as a child, loved as a child, cared for as a child, whether in a healthy or unhealthy way, that's the number one indicator of how you will treat, care for, and love your children. And so most of these parents, Mark's parent included, mother included, had gone through a very severe trauma. She was obviously dealing with some grief. In my non-psychological psychologist opinion, she was dealing with blaming herself. And because she blamed herself for what had happened to her son, she was pouring out that blame on her other son because she could not deal with the guilt.
So in your experience,
Yeah.
would you say that they depicted trauma pretty well, like accurately?
Yes. Now, whether or not there's talking hippos and everybody's trauma, protections and things like that, probably not. But the main themes that they were catching, in my opinion, it's probably the best depiction of trauma and how your brain responds to trauma that I've seen in a media outlet. Now, that's not to say I've seen everything that's out there, but from what I've seen, it is one of the best at how the brain works, how it protects, how it keeps you safe, and how it deals with trauma happening in your life.
Awesome. Jason, we appreciate it, buddy. Jason Geesaman joining us live on the Geek Phone.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you
Can't
so much,
wait to
Jason.
hear what you have to say about Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. We'll talk to you then, buddy.
All right.
All right. Okay. So we talked to Jason. We hung up the Geek Phone. Let's continue talking about the episode. We've delved into the trauma of it all. Let's get back to the episode itself. We're kind of episode 5. We're kind of hopping between Mark's repressed memories, his transition into whatever this afterlife thing that's going on.
Yeah.
Unknown whether this is going on in his brain or if this is some supernatural thing in the Marvel universe.
I think it could be both.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen in Black Panther,
Yeah.
in particular, an afterlife that's ethereal and specific to their kind of culture.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't be the first time. Also, there was an interesting parallel with WandaVision, which we've talked about a little bit, where the next to last episode of WandaVision dealt with Agatha Harkness kind of leading Wanda through her memories.
Mm-hmm.
Some memories in her past that were tough. So there was a parallel in that, but Moon Knight episode 5 kind of uses this same narrative device as a means of kind of unraveling the mystery of Mark's DID. Through the first 4 episodes, the show's perspective has largely belonged to Steven. But this episode, I don't think I can say it yet. Let's just stick on. It's more from Mark's perspective.
Spoilers.
And we see we get an introduction to Mark Spector, the real Mark Spector, Jewish heritage. His father's a rabbi. The exploration of his trauma, the death of his brother, the abuse of his mom.
Verbal, physical, emotional.
Is this the darkest thing that the MCU has ever showed us? I mean, I can't. Thanos sacrificing Gamora seemed pretty heavy at the time, but this Black Widow sacrificing herself seemed pretty heavy. But this is just this was hard to watch for me.
I mean, you get Black Widow's backstory, which, I mean, permanently ruined or altered her adult life. I mean, even Wanda's story's heartbreaking and devastating. Yeah. It depends on your perspective, I would say. That if something hits or you can relate to it, you then connect to it better and it will hit harder.
Well, Jason said something that I think is true. If you have some sort of trauma in your past that could link you to this trauma, this was probably hard for you to watch.
Yeah. Even though you don't see the physical trauma, but I mean, the build up to it is it's a roller coaster ride of emotions. And if you are not in a, I guess, balanced or stable spot in your life, that could definitely be re-traumatizing, triggering, whatever word you want to use, and just be mindful of that.
Yeah. It was hard to watch for me, but at the same time, I was so engrossed in it. I was so like into it, and we got to stop here and give credit to Oscar Isaac, who is just, I mean, he is amazing in this episode.
I want to give him an Oscar for this, even though it's a TV show.
I mean, if he's not nominated for an Emmy for this, I just don't know what it takes, because when it's falling on him, when Steven is seeing it, he's playing two parts, and Oscar is playing Mark Spector, who's, you can see it's all crashing in on him, and Steven is going through the realization of what's happening and crashing on Mark. It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartrending. And Oscar Isaac is playing two roles in this scene, and they're both amazing. Like, that's the crazy part, is Oscar Isaac is playing two roles at the same time that are different, but so engrossing. And it's just it's a heavy episode. There is some levity. I mean, there's a hippo who's just delightful, by the way.
Yeah, very pleasant, and her ears wiggle.
So they go through all the memories, and you find out why Mark is Mark. You find out how he became Moon Knight in this episode. You find out how Layla's dad has died. There's it's almost in passing that they mention who is a kind of a major villain in the Moon Knight comics. His mercenary partner that goes off the rails and gets greedy. That's all he's said about him so far, and that is Bushman. He refers to him just briefly as Bushman, but that's important, because if there is more story to tell, and they've been kind of cagey about doing another season of this.
Which, if I have a complaint with the MCU Disney Plus shows, is that most of them, it seems like, are kind of one-offs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I need more story.
And it'll be an absolute crime if we go through this process of, because I think what's happening, and again, man, if you haven't seen this episode, I don't know why you've listened this far, but the Stephen Grant alter, the persona, dies in this kind of thing that's happening in Mark's brain. He falls off the boat. He gets frozen in the sand. Meanwhile, Mark gets sent off to the reeds, but Steven's gone. And I think what you're meant to take out of this is that his person, he's healing.
So from a mental health perspective, I would kind of compare it to, and it's not a perfect comparison, so don't say I'm saying that this is what it was, but it's kind of like exposure therapy, or kind of the cognitive behavioral therapy model of baby steps introducing, because we find out that Mark, mentally, his mind creates the Steven persona to take on that violence, that abuse, both physical and emotional. And Mark actually had to deal with it.
Yeah.
He dealt with losing Steven, where we find out that Steven, the reason why we're seeing him so much is because mom passed away. Mm-hmm. And that Mark didn't want to deal with it. And so, or couldn't deal with it is what I should say. He couldn't deal with it. And so the Steven persona comes around more often. And you look back at the first episode where he's calling his mom all the time. She's never answering, but he's just delightful and cheery about it. I mean, that's foreshadowing. And yeah, he actually had to deal with that, with something that he cared about, losing it, and that created a balance within his life. Now, whether that's a permanent balance or a temporary one, that's yet to remains to be seen. But I mean, for that brief moment, there's balance.
It sure seems like that the Stephen Grant persona is going to be gone, which would be a departure from the comics if they decided to keep going. They still have some loose ends to tie up. Now, when this episode ends, he's in the field of reeds, Mark Spector.
I think we'll see Steven again.
You think we'll see Steven again? Steven appears to have met his end in the desert, or in the frozen desert. I don't even know what you call it, the Duat. And Tawaret, what we're left with, it was Tawaret. It's on her, the hippo, to go free Khonshu. Right, that's where we're left. So I assume we'll start the next episode right away in the knowledge of whether she was successful or not, which I'm guessing she will be. There's some questions that need to be answered. One, like in this episode, when Steven sees the memory of Khonshu taking Mark, as Mark was prepared to kill himself. He was dying. You assume he's dying from a gunshot wound, but he's about to end it. And Khonshu starts talking to him, and Steven says to him, he took advantage of you. Like, you've been taken advantage of. So all of the implications, and Arthur Harrow has actually been truthful. It's honest what he's been telling him. He's like, he took advantage of you. He's right. And maybe we're getting some insight here into the brokenness of Arthur Harrow as well, who is a former Fist of Khonshu, according to the show. And so Stephen Grant, we're going to see some sort of reconciliation.
Although during that scene, I felt Khonshu had some admiration towards the broken, beautiful mind of Mark Spector.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, I can see that.
And so
we've only watched it the once. So
yes, for me, I could see it being like Mark confronts him and is like all angry about it, and then Khonshu saying, "No, I chose you because you have this dual vision of seeing the good in the world and being ready to carry out justice and stick up for those that have gone through hurting."
So you think Khonshu might bring Steven back?
Yeah, I think that is, for me, that's where it's going. If I'm making my bold guesses, is he chose Mark not because he was weak or vulnerable, but because he could see the good in the world, and he also wants to stick up for those that are downtrodden, and that Steven's a part of that, seeing the good in the world.
Yeah. So that's bold prediction, pop culture pastor prediction number one.
That's me.
I think it's obvious. This isn't really a prediction, but I think you're going to see a lot of action in this last episode. I think it sets up for, hey, this is going to be the climactic battle, right? So I think we're going to see a lot of Moon Knight. Here's my second bold prediction. My second bold prediction, to go on to your first bold prediction, is that the third sarcophagus that many people online have been guessing is the Jake Lockley altar from the comics.
The cab driver.
I do not think is Jake Lockley. I think the third altar that's in the sarcophagus will be the Moon Knight. And I think the Moon Knight may have been its own alternate personality all along, and neither Steven nor Mark were aware of it. In the comics, that's kind of how it plays out. That's not how it's played out so far in the television show. They seem kind of in control, but I don't think we're getting I don't think we've been shown everything. So I think that the identity in the third sarcophagus is the Moon Knight himself. That's my second big prediction. And that by the end of this episode, obviously, I think we can all guess that Moon Knight will be victorious. Arthur Harrow will be stopped. Amit, who apparently has already been unleashed, because there's reference to it as there's souls. Tawaret starts freaking out that souls that aren't supposed to be there are dropping in.
or the multiverse is already split.
So I think we're gonna see by the end of the show that a much more unified yet divided Mark Spector with a cooperative environment relationship between Mark, a revived Stephen Grant by Khonshu, and then Moon Knight himself.
Okay, I could dig that.
Which I would just guess the Moon Knight alter will be the no nonsense, get it done by any means necessary kind of part of their personality.
Yeah.
I have three. We have three bold predictions, but those are just two. But I'm waiting for the last one because the last one doesn't really have to do with the story at large.
Okay, so I have a bold guest appearance, I guess.
Oh, okay. Maybe we're on the same wavelength here.
A character that was like, you know what? I'm going to say two guest appearances will happen.
Well, let's just say that because a lot of people are guessing that there might be some connections here in the last episode.
It goes with the end credits of Eternals. Is where my mind goes.
Oh, so you're thinking Wong, right?
No.
Who is in that one?
Blade and
Black Knight.
Black Knight.
Yeah.
And so, part of my reason is
you think they're going Midnight Suns?
That, and also one of the QR codes takes you to a comic that features Blade.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Moon Knight and Blade kind of occupy the same territory in the comics a lot. Moon Knight first appears in a Werewolf by Night comic. Werewolf by Night, all kinds of pretty much confirmed rumors out there that Marvel is going to be using the Werewolf by Night character in the future, in the near future, maybe by Halloween, like a Halloween special.
And then they're going to do the crossover event of the century with Morbius.
Oh gosh, let's hope not. No Morbius. That is done, we hope. Here's my bold prediction, and this will probably be an after credit scene.
Okay. Which we haven't had any with the show yet.
No, we haven't had any. I think we will get an after credit scene in episode 6, and I think it will at least imply a connection to Kang. I think either Kang appears or there's an implication of Kang being involved in all this. They've set a lot of things up that Kang is just kind of inherently connected to in the Marvel universe, in the comics. Rama Tut, he was one of his variants, one of the Kang variants, went back in time in the comics, became a powerful Egyptian pharaoh named Rama Tut. One of the thugs in episode 3?
Yeah.
Is wearing a jacket where Rama's, unmistakable hat thing is on his jacket. I think it's going to have to do with the Alexander the Great discovery that Steven makes in episode 4.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're going to be like, that wasn't Alexander the Great or what, but his face on that sarcophagus was blue. It had lines that were distinctive that reminded me of Kang's old school comics outfit. I just think my prediction is we're going to get some sort of reference to Kang in an after credit scene.
Okay.
That's my bold prediction. That's just kind of out there because it won't be a part of the story at large.
It would not, but it would be a big deal.
Yeah, because they haven't really, since the last episode of Loki, I kind of expected some sort of just crazy moment from Moon Knight that was just way off the beaten path of where I thought we'd go. Like the last episode of Loki did, where we just, it was like, whoa, this is crazy. But I think they did that in a different way with this episode. I did not expect them to give us this emotional look into Mark's trauma. And I'm here for it. I cried all the way through it, but I loved it. What a great episode of television.
Yeah, and I think that it serves a good reminder for us as viewers, as people, that we don't always know what the person next to us has gone through. We don't know how they are processing what life has thrown at them recently, what life's thrown at them in the past. I mean, there's conditions and that are affected genetically that are passed down from generation to generation. I mean, there's several studies about epigenetics and how literally trauma that happened to your grandparents is going to affect you, but the way you respond to it can forever alter future generations. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, just being aware that, yes, we all do have the pains and traumas that we go through, but each person's is going to look different and each person's going to respond differently. Some people can move on and process it well. Some people are kind of stuck in a fight or flight mode quite frequently, and it's hard for them to get out and to de-escalate and then to process. And so be patient with people, be kind to people, be loving to people, and be loving to yourself. That is, I think, one of the big things that Mark had to go through in this episode was being able to accept all that has happened to him in his life, but also to be able to care for himself.
Yeah, at the end of the day, Stephen Alter, whom he's annoyed with most of the show, you can tell he loves that part of himself, and he's protecting him. He's trying to keep him from those. That's the part of himself where he's blocking out the bad. But man, this ended up being a much deeper episode than I thought it was going to be at the beginning of the day before I watched Moon Knight. Mm-hmm. But we had planned on talking about using this episode to talk about Moon Knight and get ready for the season finale of it. I just didn't know it was going to be this way because I didn't know they were going to hit us with an episode like that. So this has been a little bit deeper episode, but I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah. And, thank you, Jason, for being on.
Yeah, Jason, thank you so much. And hey, we are pastors, so anyone who's listening to this who is having a tough time dealing with past traumas, this is a great opportunity to say, you don't have to go through that alone. Go talk to someone. Go talk to a therapist. Go get help from anybody that you can go to, and talk this out. You do not have to sit with trauma on your own. Sometimes pain can be so isolating, and when things happen to us, it can be so isolating. And really, the best thing you can do for yourself is find a friend, find someone that you can just let it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening to our podcast. If you would do us a favor and follow us on Facebook or Twitter, subscribe to our podcast, leave a review. It really helps us out, gets more people. We want more people to discover the podcast, not because we want to be like rich and famous or anything, but because we're pastors. And at the end of the day, we just want to go to these comic conventions and have more relationship with people and more people that we can just share life with.
That's what we're about.
We are. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.